Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Manjiri Nadkarni, Ayurvedic MD, registered holistic nutritionist, back today. Today, I'm live on Instagram as well as Facebook in my group as well as on my page. So, today is a very special topic. This is a topic that I've been wanting to discuss for a long time. And one of the biggest challenges that I see with this topic is that a lot of the times, what ends up happening is you think that it's only your diet, or the lack of exercise that's causing your weight gain, but that's not always true. So one of the reasons you could be struggling with your weight is that you have issues with your hormones, and that could be one of the main things that, okay, you're not losing weight in spite of trying everything. um, you're trying everything in your power, you're eating right, you're exercising, but you just can't seem to shed the weight off, right? So if you are watching this live, say a quick hi. If you are watching this as a replay, please put a hashtag as replay. And if you have any questions for me, just let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer. Hi Radhika, hello Anika, hi Isha, hi Averdy, thank you for joining me live. And I'm looking at both sides because I'm live on Facebook as well as Instagram, at like on the same group. So I'm just gonna quickly share it in one more group, and I think yeah, I think I'm ready. Yeah. So let's get started. So hi, Jasmine. Hello. So today we are talking about five main hormones that are responsible for your weight gain. This is especially important if you're trying everything in your power and you don't seem to get rid of that excess weight or excess body fat that you're holding on to, right? And see, weight gain could be, you are typically it's a gain in the body fat, right? Nobody complains when they get muscles because it's not easier to gain muscle. And any of the athletes, especially women who are exercising, require a lot of efforts to be able to build that muscle as a woman. And we are also going to talk a little bit about water retention, because when we talk about weight gain, it's typically the fat or the water retention that we don't want, right? So that's what we're going to discuss. Hi, Wendy. Nice to see you. Hey, Courtney. Nice to see you. So let's get started. So the number one hormone that is responsible for weight gain, everything that you try, and if you don't seem to get any, help with your weight, or no matter what you try, your weight just doesn't seem to budge, you have to get your thyroid levels tested, right? So the number one hormone is your thyroid hormone. And if you're trying everything in your power and you still cannot lose that excess weight, that has to do with your thyroid hormone. Now, an interesting fact about thyroid hormone is it is responsible, it affects each and every cell of your body, and it is also responsible for your metabolism. It is also responsible for your focus. It is also responsible for, maintaining the moisture in your skin as well. So if you are deficient in this thyroid, or if your thyroid is blocked for some reason, the hormone activity is blocked for some reason, right? And one of the most common reasons is inflammation. You will struggle with what's known as hypothyroidism. So, hypothyroid is a low functioning thyroid, right? You could have lowered hormones, or sometimes you have hormones, but they are not, being effective because of the inflammation, right? And often when I see clients, I see that their thyroid numbers, their TSH is within the value, their T3, T4, is within numbers or within the levels. Sometimes the TSH is slightly elevated, but they have a lot of symptoms, right? So if you're struggling with symptoms of thyroid, chances are your thyroid is not functioning well. One of the best ways to understand your thyroid function is getting a basal body temperature test done. So checking your body temperature early in the morning could be a good indicator. But this is the number one thing, and this is the most common thing that I see with my clients, and that I also see with lots and lots of women. So this is extremely important. So if you are really struggling with your weight, one thing that you need to do is first get your thyroid numbers checked, which is extremely extremely important. Now, let's talk about the second hormone, right? So, one of the hormones, I'm not sure how many of you have heard about it. Have you heard about leptin? Leptin. So if you've heard about leptin, there's another one called ghrelin, right? So leptin and ghrelin are two hormones and they kind of work together, right? And these have to do with our, feeling of fullness, or that you are satisfied with your meal. So it's known as leptin, leptin. And the other hormone that works kind of along with it is ghrelin, which makes you growl and it stimulates your appetite, right? So leptin is something that makes you feel satisfied. Leptin is something that tells you that, okay, stop eating right now. And a few of my clients, they tell me that, okay, Manjiri, I start eating, but I just cannot stop eating. It's fine for me to start, but I really, really struggle with knowing where to stop. Right. And it could be emotional eating. Sometimes, even though you're not emotionally feeling low, you could just keep eating and eating and eating, and you don't know where to stop. You don't feel satisfied. Right. That could be one of the reasons that your leptin signals are off. Leptin is a hormone that, tells you to stop eating, that tells you that, okay, you're full, now it's time to stop eating, right? And whenever you eat excess of sugar, right, whenever you eat excess of sugar, and this excess sugar, is converted into fat, it can get deposited into your belly region, also in your liver, right? And that becomes a problem, because when you have too much of these fat cells, you secrete a lot of leptin. So ideally, having too much of leptin should make you stop eating, but the signals get skewed as well. Or as we talk about insensitivity to insulin, some people also develop an insensitivity to this leptin hormone, right? So leptin is could be another cause of why, you're not, like, while you should be getting those signals that, okay, I am hungry. I've eaten. I'm full now. I should stop eating. But because of too much leptin, you develop this insensitivity, and you are going to not understand when you're satisfied. You don't know where to stop. So that's the second reason, right? Now, there is another hormone that kind of works together with it, that's known as ghrelin. So, ghrelin is the hormone which makes you growl with hunger, right? So, it's going to stimulate your appetite and also increase fat deposition in the body, right? And when people are, you know um, like really obese, they're also sensitive to ghrelin, right? And they are going to make you eat more, right? So it will make you growl more, it will make you want more food, and that's why you're constantly eating. So again, what I'm trying to say is the signaling between these hormones, leptin and ghrelin, goes off, especially, in certain people, especially in obese people. And that's why, it's very difficult to get rid of that excess body fat, right, once the signals are skewered. But don't worry, when you work on your diet, when you work on lowering your inflammation, it can have fantastic results on your diet. A lot of the missignaling of the hormones can stop as well, and you will be able to lose weight. So this is going to be something, amazing, if you start being serious about your health and lowering the inflammation, right? Now, insulin is the third hormone, right? And insulin is extremely, extremely important. Insulin is one hormone that we require to help carry the glucose inside the body cells, right? So when we eat food, if you're eating something that has sugar, insulin is going to open up the gates of your cell so the sugar can get inside the cell and work efficiently. But if you are constantly eating sweet foods, if you're constantly eating sugary foods, what ends up happening is, you are resistant to your own insulin. Your body cannot read the signals of this insulin. Your body cannot understand the signals, right? So while your body is secreting a lot of insulin, your cells are not identifying it, your cells are not understanding it, right? And this becomes a huge challenge. So this is a situation known as insulin insensitivity, right? And what that develops, that can also create a situation like diabetes, type 2 diabetes in your body. And initially, when you have excess of sugar, right, and insulin, because if you're not active, if you're not, working out or using that excess glucose, it is just going to deposit it as fat, right? So if you're joining me just now, we are talking about the five main hormones that are responsible for weight gain. We've talked about thyroid, which is the number one thing you should check if you're trying everything in your power to lose weight, but if you can't lose your weight, typically thyroid is my number one to always check for. The second one is leptin and ghrelin, the combination, so they're both different hormones. Leptin is the one that makes you feel satisfied. So for some reason, if you have lots of inflammation, or if you're obese, you're over secreting this leptin, you can get sensitive to it and it will not tell you when to stop. Ghrelin is the hormone which makes you growl with hunger. So sometimes, if you are extremely hungry and constantly eating because your hunger is stimulated, you're not going to lose weight, right? So those were the two together. And then insulin is the third in the sequence. Insulin extremely important for our body to push glucose inside the cells. But if you're overeating glucose, if you're over consuming sugary foods, or even pastries, or even anything that's made with flour, anything that's processed, anything that has no fiber or no protein and is a pure carb, right? That is eventually going to create issues with your blood sugar by creating an insensitivity to your own insulin. And that could be responsible for your weight gain, right? So for those watching live, just let me know which of the three that we've discussed, or the four that we've discussed, which do you think is your problem? Are you struggling with your Do you think you're struggling with thyroid? Do you think you're struggling with leptin levels that you never feel satisfied, that your leptin is not sensitive enough? Or do you feel like always that growling hunger? Or are you feeling issues with blood sugar, having random blood sugar drops that you need to eat, you're shaky, you get hangry easily, you're extremely irritable if you don't get to eat? So these are signs of imbalanced blood sugar related to insulin, right? So those are the hormones that we were talking about. Now the fourth one again is extremely important, and we are discussing lots of hormones, this month. One of the most important hormones today is estrogen, right? So estrogen is a group of three main hormones. I'm not going to get into the technical terms, but there are three kinds of estrogens, and estrogen is also a huge challenge in today's world, right? And why is it a big challenge in today's world? Because when we talk about certain chemicals, I often talk about people that stop drinking water from a plastic bottle, right? So one thing you can do is you can have glass bottles. So this is not alcohol, this is just fulvic acid, which is like mineral mix that I'm drinking with my water. But this is like a glass jar that I'm using for water, right? So you could use any of the mugs, any mason jars, anything that you want, but please stop using plastic bottles. Please stop using bottles, especially when it's hot outside and you're keeping those plastic bottles in the fridge, out in your car, and they get heated up. Please stop using plastic containers, especially when you're warming foods in the microwave. Please stop using canned foods which have BPA lining inside, right? Because these are certain chemicals, also a lot of pesticides in your food, right? They are all going to act like your female hormone estrogen. They're known as xenoestrogens or foreign estrogens. And when your body has too much of this foreign estrogens, right? Even one molecule of xenoestrogen can create 100-fold effect of the natural estrogen that your body has. Now, when you have too many of these xenoestrogens, they're going to occupy all the receptors on your body, right, for estrogen, and they're going to create 100 times the effect, right? And that is how they're responsible for tumors. If you look at breast cancer, if you look at other kind of cancers, including prostate cancer, a lot of research shows that it has been linked to estrogens, right? So this is why, managing your estrogen levels is extremely important. And there is a condition called estrogen dominance, where you have too much of this estrogen. Again, another reason could be you're on birth control pills. Another reason could be that you're on certain medications, um, or another reason could be that your body is not detoxifying. Your liver is really weak because of all the garbage that you're eating. Excuse my language, but a lot of the times, people eat junky foods. And if you're eating a really bad diet, you're taxing your liver. It's not going to clean the hormones out, right? So you have to eat clean foods. That is extremely, extremely important for your overall health and to manage levels of this estrogen. And having too much of estrogen as well as too low of estrogen can create a lot of fat in the body, right? And again, estrogen is secreted via fat cells. So this is also something to remember. I'm going to say a quick hi to Dr. Aman. Bi-Fi Essentials is here. Sumita is here. Prachi Deshpande is here as well. And Darshana is here. Sean has a comment. I have a friend who doesn't eat for a few days at a time because it causes her pain and she has to lie down and take rest. They removed her gallbladder and appendix. They did scopes from both ends but couldn't find anything abnormal. Her glucose levels are also being affected. Ayurveda has much to say about digestive issues. What could that be? I suggested she go on a khichdi mono diet for a week. Um, Again, like I will, because of the comment, and I can talk a little bit more. See, we have to figure out, like where the inflammation lies. So diagnosing is, according to Ayurveda, is very individualized, right? We have to look at what is out of balance in her body or where the inflammation is. So I have to look at different body systems and understand, because sometimes you're having issues with your gastrointestinal tract, and the reason could definitely be food. Sometimes the reason could lie somewhere else, right? So we have to figure out. So an Ayurvedic assessment is very different. I don't believe in labeling or diagnosing people, right? Because when I assess through Ayurveda, for me, it does not matter whether you've received a diagnosis or not. So that's the number one thing. Ayurveda has a lot to work with digestion, because your digestion is the key to your overall health. So that's true, because this is the place where you're interacting with anything external, right? So when you eat food, that's becoming a part of you, and that process only happens via digestion. So that is extremely, extremely important for you. Now, I'm not sure unless I assess what it could be, but Sean, feel free to ask her to set up a 15-minute free call with me, and I can talk to her and I can see if I can help her, and then we can discuss more. Now, when we talk about khichdi mono diet, right, for a week, again, this is not a very Ayurvedic thing as per me. So I have never seen a textual reference of a khichdi mono diet for a week. I've had clients do it for a month, because they were suggested about a khichdi mono diet. But khichdi is not the lightest food you can have, and sometimes it might not work if you have any sensitivity to grains or beans. That could also be an option, right? Which I see in a lot of my Caucasian clients as well. They're not used to digesting beans, even though mung beans are extremely light, but people can suffer from sensitivities to different foods. So I'm not sure if khichdi mono diet is the answer for everyone. And khichdi mono diet, there is no Ayurvedic reference for it. And I look at the core texts of Ayurveda, so these are implemented in the West for a long time, but in India, studying Ayurveda for 8.5 years, I've never come across anybody who would put any patient on the khichdi mono diet. So sorry for just being blunt, but I don't think it works. I think it's more like a whitewashed Ayurvedic thing for the West. It's not authentic Ayurveda when we talk about khichdi mono diet. So estrogen again, so estrogen is extremely important. Going back to my, fourth hormone, is estrogen needs to be looked at. So too high estrogen, again, could be responsible for different conditions like PCOS. So when we talk about polycystic ovarian syndrome, what ends up happening is there are symptoms where you have again issues with your body, lots of inflammation, insulin sensitivity, and you struggle with weight loss, right? And also it can create issues with fertility. So that's very typical of polycystic ovarian syndrome, and that is also connected with estrogen dominance. Now, when we see too low levels of estrogen, is typically during menopause, right? Typically during menopause, where your levels drop too low, again, that's the time where a lot of women start gaining weight, right? So you have to identify, exactly which hormone is off balance, right? And there is never one. So if from my experience of the 6 years I've been practicing here in Sarnia and all my education in India, when you look at hormones, there is never a solitary hormone that's out of balance. It's always going to be a group of hormones because they are interlinked with each other. Hormones do not function in a solitary way. Your thyroid is always going to work with your adrenals. Your adrenals are always going to, secrete your female hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and be interconnected as well, right? So that's the one thing you have to find and pay attention to. Now, the fifth hormone is something that everybody struggles with, and that's known as cortisol. So, cortisol is something that's secreted by your stress glands, right? And it is secreted when you're under a lot of stress, when you are extremely depressed, when you're anxious, when you're angry, or even if you have any physical trauma where pain is a constant characteristic. If you've been living with high levels of pain in your body, right, because you had an accident or some kind of trauma, your cortisol levels are going to be much higher, right? So cortisol levels are going to be much higher because it is secreted in response to that pain, right? It is secreted in response to any stressor. Physical pain is a huge stressor as well. If you are depressed as well, if you are going through a tough time right now in the pandemic, right, which is affecting millions and millions of us, right, and pretty much every single person on the planet is affected in one way or the other because of pandemic. But if you are depressed, or if you're anxious, or if you are really getting frustrated, it is going to create excess secretion of cortisol in your system, right? And cortisol regulates your energy levels and energy mobilization as well, right? So when you are having, your stress glands function well, you have tons of energy to carry out the activities of the day. But when your stress glands are not functioning well, what is going to happen is, you're going to be fatigued, and you're going to be exhausted, and you're going to be extremely tired, right? So those are some things where, you have to pay attention to. And excess cortisol, which is secreted with long term stress, is going to create issues where you're going to have too much insulin in the system and too much fat deposition, as well as your muscle mass is going to get lowered, because when your body is in stress, cortisol is going to mobilize all the muscles, break it down, convert it into fat, and start storing fat. So if you need it for tomorrow, because we are trained through our, days as hunter gatherers to go without food for a long time. So this fat forms a layer of protection for us. So every time we perceive a threat, cortisol is going to do its activity and make sure you're having enough fat in case there's a famine and you have to stay alive, right? So these are the five hormones I was talking about. For those who are just joining me, the five typical hormones that I talked about, the first one is thyroid. Second one was a combination more of leptin, ghrelin. Third is insulin. Fourth is estrogen. And fifth is cortisol. Um, so Shraddha is saying that I'm working on weight loss by an hour of yoga every day and Dikshit diet. In 3 months, I've lost only 6 kgs, but never focused on hormones. So Shraddha, again, there are different diets. You can look at, absolutely, there's the Dikshit diet, there's the Divekar diet. There are so many different diets that people propagate, but not everything works for everyone, right? And hormones are often the missing link. Like if you are not losing enough weight, if you are really struggling with, issues related to your weight gain, and no matter how much you try, you seem not to lose weight, always check your hormones, and you don't always have to get hormones tested. The numbers are of course good to get from your doctor, but there are also assessment questionnaires that I can run for you, so I can see how many symptoms of imbalances of the hormones are impacting you. So we can definitely do that. So if you're interested, feel free to message me. And one thing I would love to share here is an experience by one of my clients, right? um Okay, that's another great question, Prasanna. So laziness, not wanting to do things, be a result of hormonal imbalance? That's an extremely good question. So thank you so much for the question, right? So procrastination is the word for it. If you are procrastinating or if you're not wanting to do things, right? And if you were extremely active before, one of that could be related to your stress glands. If your stress glands are over exhausted, right, you are not going to have the energy to do things. So you have to figure out where the not wanting to do things, is it because of fatigue? Are you physically fatigued? So it can be a sign of your stress glands out of balance, right? The second thing, if you're not having the motivation to do anything, right, thyroid hormone is also responsible for motivation. So if you're lacking that motivation, if you're feeling more mentally fatigued, mentally bogged down, that could be a sign of thyroid imbalance as well, right? So I would have to assess to tell you which one, but on a very general level, if you're experiencing procrastination, if you're experiencing that you just are disinterested in things, or you don't have the motivation anymore, it could be linked to either of your thyroid or your adrenals. So those are two things you can definitely check with. Now I would love to share a story, and I know I have my client's permission because she's posted it on my Google reviews as well, if you want to go and check it out. So my client has been a diabetic for a long time, and she has been an insulin dependent diabetic, right? And she's been working with me through different programs, like never one on one, but through different programs, for some time. And this time she also signed up for my Ayurvedic spring cleanse, which I had focused on creating an anti-inflammatory diet. So we had taken out lots of foods, we'd taken out nightshades, we'd taken out everything that could inflame you, gluten, dairy. So I had created a specific meal plan, and I had given them lots of options. So every single day, they were eating foods which were good for their body, that has tons of anti-inflammatory spices, and they had certain rules to follow, but they were eating a wide variety of food. So it was not a khichdi mono diet, or it was not a soup diet, it was not a juice diet. It was a diet where they were actually eating a lot of delicious foods, but those foods were really low in inflammation. They were all anti-inflammatory foods. And she has an amazing testimonial for me. Like even today she posted in the Facebook group that her insulin levels have been much better now. So when she started this diet, when she started this plan with me, what ended up happening was her insulin levels started getting back to normal, right? Today she says that she has officially halved her insulin dose for both long as well as short acting insulins, with normal blood sugar. So her dose is half of what it was when she was starting out, and she's down 5 pounds. So that is extremely important, that when you're losing weight, right, it has to be healthy weight loss. Your insulin has to be balanced, your muscles, you don't have to lose muscle mass. So these are signs of healthy weight loss as well. That's extremely important. So anti-inflammatory foods are one of the spices, using a lot of good spices is turmeric, for example. That is an anti-inflammatory food. Rice or brown rice, can be an anti-inflammatory food as well, right? Few inflammatory foods that we eat on a typical basis are tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, eggplants, right? Nightshades can cause inflammation in some people. So there are different foods which are going to inflame your body. Gluten is a common one, dairy is another common one, right? Anti-inflammatory foods could be, millets. Like millets are extremely good. They can lower your inflammation as well. Leafy greens also have a lot of anti-inflammatory potential. So those are examples of anti-inflammatory foods. And one of the best foods that I personally love is, bottle gourd or lauki. A lot of squashes, zucchini, they're also going to be anti-inflammatory. So they are also extremely important, right? So, but doing a 7-day diet, and then she continued for 15 days, and she's still continuing with the meals even now. But even her insulin dose has reduced, both long as well as short acting, right? And she's herself a trained nurse, so it's not that she doesn't know, or she had no information about healthcare before, or health information before, right? But you have to make sure that, when we talk about inflammation, you have to find what's inflaming your system. That is important. Not everybody has the same reactions to different foods, right? So that is where you have to look at the nidanas, you have to look at what's causing inflammation in you and take those specifically out. So that's one thing I would suggest. Dr. Patankar is saying proper regular exercise, follow daily. Yes, that will definitely help, Dr. Rajan. But often what happens is, even with the exercise and even with daily regimens, if your hormones are completely off balance, it creates a lot of challenges. So unless you try to work with diet herbs to rebalance your hormones, you're not going to get that weight loss very easily. So that's something very important. Thank you so much, Darshana. It was amazing. Yeah. So yeah, you should have food when you're hungry, but if your signaling is off, if you're somebody who's constantly hungry, right? If you're ghrelin, like we talked about different hormones today, we talked about thyroid, we talked about leptin, which creates that satiety in your body. But if your leptin signaling is off, you're never going to feel satisfied. If your ghrelin secretion is too much, you're always going to growl with hunger, right? So in these conditions, you have to figure out what's causing it, right? And definitely 100%, proper exercise, daily routine is extremely important. Eating a good diet, a nutritious everyday diet is extremely important. So 100%, but hormones could be the missing link. If you have looked at everything else but not at hormones, that's the one thing you need to check, is my opinion. So Sean says, thank you for the comprehensive answer to the question. Um, yeah, so Sean, what I can do is I can just put my link right here where you can find me for the 15-minute free consultation, and she can just chat with me. And then if she has questions, I'll definitely be more than happy to help her out, right? So most definitely I can do that. And if you have questions, share this video with her, Sean. So one thing what you can do is share this video with her, and you can tag her in this video or share it privately with her, and then if she has any questions, she can definitely get in touch with me. So this was all for today. So number one takeaway from this is, if you're trying everything, nothing seems to work, focus on your hormones, right? And be responsible, like figure out which hormones are really responsible for weight gain, and you really try it. So that's what we're going to do. Now, next week for the Wellness Wednesday, I'm going to be back on May 19th. I'll be talking about the connection between hormones as well as gut health, right? So we talk about digestion, we talk about gut health, and then we talk about hormones separately, right? But next week, I'm going to link it together. What exactly, is the impact that the hormones have on your gut health, right? And how your gut microbiome is again then in turn going to affect the hormones. So we're going to have this very amazing discussion. I don't think I've spoken on this topic, so I'm super excited for it. Thank you everyone for watching this live. Thank you so much, for watching this live. I'm gonna say a quick hi to Kalindi. I'm gonna say a quick hi to Dr. Manil and M Lifts as well. Thank you, Dr. Patankar, for your inputs. As always, it's very informative. So thank you all once again, and I will be back next Wednesday. Till then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay blessed, and try to grow your own food. That's the one thing I've been encouraging everyone is, no matter what plants you can grow, maybe just even chilies or spinach or whatever it is that you like, try to, gardening is like a very easy, it's a very inexpensive hobby as well, and that will also manage your cortisol levels and ensure that you're getting fresh food, right? So I am an amateur gardener, I don't always know everything, I look at Google and try to get information, but this year I'm going to have an amazing garden, including an Ayurvedic herb garden, right? So someday I'll give you all a tour of my garden when it's all set up. But try to grow your own food, whether it's just one vegetable or whether it's just like herbs, that you can use in your food. And most herbs have anti-inflammatory potential, right? So whether you're talking about, I have some interesting ones here. So this is manduk parani, right? So all herbs, this is especially a nootropic, which means it helps your brain function. But different herbs, whether it's turmeric, whether it's rosemary, whether it's basil, whether it's thyme, oregano, they all have a lot of anti-inflammatory potential, right? So this is something you need to keep in mind and include that in your diet, right? And it doesn't require a lot of space, so please take some time, grow some vegetables, if nothing, grow herbs, right? And your body will thank you, your mind will thank you as well, because you'll be much grounded and much focused. So thank you once again for letting me share my love of gardening, and thanks for watching this live. Again, if you like this video, please feel free to share it with your friends by tagging them or here, or you can also share it privately. Thank you once again. I will be back next week, same time, 1 p.m., and I'm going to discuss the connection between your hormones and your gut health then, right? So thank you